Hey guys, welcome to today's show. We're talking about the power of journaling today. And this is something that I have practiced with and gotten a ton of benefit from over the years. Those that I've helped implement this with too have gotten incredible benefits from. And it's something that I want to share with you guys because it's so simple, it's so readily available, it's so easy to implement, and it provides so much benefit. And we're going to talk specifically about journaling here in today's show, but this also applies to any kind of practice you can put in place where you can regularly review some of the things they're going to be talking about to make sure that you're making progress in the right areas and that you're properly managing stresses, managing emotions. And that's something as guys we struggle so much with. Because if you are anything like me, if you've ever struggled with too much stress, a lack of clarity, frustration, trouble managing emotions, then I want you to consider giving a regular journaling practice an honest shot. And most guys I work with and that I know and that I talk to struggle with organizing their thoughts and emotions. And there is an incredible power in a journaling practice to help bring more clarity to whatever you're feeling, whatever is on your mind. Listen up to today's show to learn more about the importance of journaling, my experience with it, and how to get started if it's something that you're interested in. So, first off, I just want to clear up what journaling is and what it is not. Simply writing something down in a journal is technically journaling. So, we don't have to overcomplicate it. We don't have to make it into this big thing. It's simply just putting pen to paper, and it can be structured, but it can be very unstructured as well. It doesn't have to start with, this is the biggest thing we need to clear up what it is not. It doesn't have to start with you writing Dear Journal every time you write in it. This is not like we might see it depicted in movies or shows or for, little kids or people that are, starting a journaling practice. This is something that guys can implement and is a very powerful tool. Most guys I talk to and work with don't know how to properly manage their stress or their emotions. They feel overwhelmed, they feel overworked, and they never have time to really process what they're feeling, what they really want or what they need, or the direction they're actually heading. And this can have so many negative effects in the short term and in the long term. In the short term, it can lead to poorly managed emotions or stress, not showing up as your best self, feeling overwhelmed, being reactive versus proactive. And in the long term, it can cause you to slowly get off track. It can cause you to have chronic low levels of stress, which we've talked about in previous shows, the negative effects that are very real, both physically and mentally with those low levels of stress. It can result in a lack of seeing the bigger picture. And this is huge. Are you really heading in the right direction? Are you working on the right things? Are you focusing on what truly matters? If you don't stop to reflect on these things, and if you fail to address any of these questions, that can lead to a life that slowly gets off track from what really matters the most. And I think that's one of the scariest things that guys face today. We are putting our head down, we're plugging away, we're working, but are we really working on the right things? Are we really going the right direction? Are we leading those that we're responsible for leading in the right direction? And I know how hard it is to be proactive with something like this, to actually carve the time out when you already feel overwhelmed or short on time. But however, these important questions need to get reflected on or need to get answered, whether it's journaling or something else, you have to find a way to regularly reflect on them. And I think that journaling is an amazing way to do this. From my personal experience with journaling, it's something that I kind of did off and on. And every time I implemented it, I felt so much more peace. I felt so much less anxiety, so much more clarity. It's where I find a lot of clarity in the problems I'm facing. It's where I get those answers to tough questions, especially questions in life and family and decisions and our business of which way, do we go right or do we go left or do we stay straight? And that's, something that the power of getting pen to paper can really help me answer some of those things and get out of my own head. It's where I process through things. It's where I make sense of things that are challenging or perplexing to me. It's where I channel energy into the most meaningful things in my life. So I firmly believe that action, and we've talked about it, you have to take action, you have to get started, but you also need to find this balance of stepping back and reflecting on what really matters the most. What are the most meaningful things in your life? And are you heading in that direction? Are you actually following through in that? Do you have a plan to actually address those things? And I use it across all areas of my life. This isn't a, one silo of this isn't just for work or just for health. It's all those things. It's the overall life direction that I'm taking. It's, I'm very big on it. And I hope I can convince you guys to do the same of knowing the direction you're heading in your life. Don't just aimlessly wander through and react to opportunities that come up. Don't react to opportunities that present themselves, or, feel like because you're in this job or you're on this path in your life and your relationships that you need to stay on that path. You can dictate and steer that ship a little bit. And while for those that know my spiritual beliefs, I don't believe we're in complete control, but I do sure believe that we play a big role in the outcome of our day to day, the outcome of how the next weeks look, how your next months look, how the next years look. We have a big role in determining the quality of the life we're living and living a life that's true to what we're supposed to be doing. And if we're not reflecting on that, if we're not reflecting on where we are and where we want to be, we might miss the boat. And that's something that, like I said, I think is scary to think about, that some people are not giving this the amount of thought that it deserves. And I use it for life direction. I use it for other areas of my life as well. Spiritually, I think it's important to be able to connect in a different way. And for me, that's connecting to God. And through writing out prayer, through doing those things, sometimes that just helps you to connect to, whatever it is you believe in, connect in a different way through pen and paper is different than, for me, simply praying and trying to verbalize that is much different than being able to write it out. And there's just, I can't really explain it. It's different. And in Lindsay and in our marriage, that's something I use to make sure that I'm showing up for her, that I'm treating her well, that I'm actually reflecting and finding ways to make sure that I'm not being too selfish, that I'm, again, reflecting so that I can better act, that I can better have purposeful actions. I use it in my fitness and health. This is where I work through a lot of problems of, do I want to go this direction or this direction? Do I want to focus on strength, or do I want to be an overall more rounded person? How does that look? How do I I'm currently doing my own programming. And if I don't write that out, if I don't brainstorm a ton of that stuff in terms of nutrition, fitness, health, then I get lost in my own head. And I use it in our business as well. Goal setting, working through problems, working through things that come up. There's no shortage of things that do come up daily, every single day. And being able to not just work through the tough problems, but feel out which problems actually need to get worked on too. So it might be, hey, I have this list of 50 things that came up, and maybe only 3 of those actually need purposeful action. And if we don't take the time to reflect on that, we're going to miss those things that are so needed. So as you can see, this has become a much needed routine in my life. And I hope you guys are willing to give it a shot. And if you are interested in exploring the power of journaling and simply getting used to writing out what's on your mind and finding a practice involved with that, I want to share a few practical steps and strategies that I've learned based on my experience and in my experience of helping other people implement this practice as well. That might be helpful if it's something that you're either interested in getting started or something maybe you've previously done that you want to get back to. And this might go without saying, but the first thing you need is a physical journal. And it doesn't matter what you use, but I highly recommend not going digital with this. I know it seems obvious, and I was hesitant to start with that, but a lot of people are like, oh, I'll jot notes down on my phone, or write it out on my phone, or I'll type it up on the computer. I do not think that's the same. I think there's a lot of power in getting pen to paper, writing things out and for a lot of reasons that I probably can't explain. But the other problem with going digital is that you're holding something very, very powerful in your hand as well. If you're on the computer, if you're doing things, it is so easy to get distracted. I'm sure you don't have to think too far back to the last time you opened up your phone to check something specifically, and you ended up down some rabbit hole or down something that you did not intend to go down. And that's the problem with going digital, is that it brings stress, it brings distractions. If you're holding, if you're typing up on your computer, and that's the same computer you do all your work on, there's some different stress associated with that. So get a physical journal, and it can be a notebook, it can be anything, but get a pen you like to write with, find a journal, and use that. Next thing, be fully focused on the task. So no distractions. This goes pretty closely with the last point, but try not to be thinking of other things. Don't have other things around you that will distract you, whether you're doing it for a minute, 10 minutes, half hour, or longer. Make sure you're fully in the journaling practice and not trying to do some other things, not trying to multitask, because that will defeat the biggest benefit of being able to really mentally wrap your head around some of the things that you're trying to. Now, as far as the X's and O's go in terms of strategy, you have a few options to consider when starting out with this process. There's really no right structure, but here are a few ideas to consider for in terms of how to get started. Okay, I'm ready to do this. What do I actually do? So you can do more freeform style of just, writing out more of the, whatever's on your mind. If it's something that you're having a hard time maybe really wrapping your head around, or some problem you're specifically working through, just start writing. This is called free form. Think of it like letter format. Just start writing and don't worry about where it takes you. Just write and see what comes up. And that might guide you down a specific thing. A recurring theme might keep coming up that you can dive into a little deeper. I love using, second thing I love using is questions for journaling. Ask yourself questions. Start with a question at the top of the page, a question that provokes some thought, some reflection, and then simply just answer the question. Questions to give you guys a general starting point. Like I said, there's no right answers. Some of the ones that I either currently am using or have used in the past that have been helpful are things like, how can I challenge myself today? How can I show up for those around me? How can I add value or serve someone in my life today? What am I currently struggling with? How is it growing me? And what is the best next step? Or how can I show up with excellence today? These are things that are questions you can use that are thought-provoking, that are making sure that you're staying on the right path for showing up as the person that you want to be. Instead, these are, 5 or so questions of thousands you can probably answer. But the important thing is making sure that those questions are reflecting on the person you want to be and giving you the means to be able to answer those questions honestly and see how you can improve. Another way you can use it is by problem solving. So I use this one a lot in our business of maybe you have a tough problem that's coming up. Maybe, it could be something related to family. It could be something related to work. Maybe you have a new career opportunity or a direction you can potentially pivot into, or an opportunity you have to say yes or no to. Then it's a great way to just do some problem solving, write the problem out, attack it from all angles, get pen to paper, and see what you can figure out. See if it brings more clarity. It usually does. I love, and pretty much anytime I journal, there's usually a component of what I call a brain dump on there. And this leads directly to all the overwhelm and the stress that can pile up in my head, and probably piles up in a lot of people's heads, is we just have all these things incoming into our minds. We have all these requests, all these things. And sometimes you can't even process it. You're like, I just feel anxious. If you ever had that feeling where you're like, I just feel anxiety building up and I don't even know what is causing it. Good old fashioned brain dump means just, okay, I'm going to make a bullet point list. I'm just going to write down anything that's on my mind, a master to-do list of everything I'm thinking about, anything I'm doing, anything I have to do. And you'll find out, you'll probably come to some pretty cool realizations with this, that you're at much more peace when you see it all on paper, when you're not trying to do your mental Rolodex with it. You'll find much more clarity from seeing it. And there's probably not as many things as you really think there is. I find this all the time. A lot of people that talk about how overwhelmed they are, stressed they are. And we have a lot of things on our minds, just in general as a society, but also maybe not as much as we think when we're like, oh, I have 100 things to do. I'm like, okay, list them all out, number them 1 to 100 and let me know what you come out with. And people get to like, 15 or 20 things they really have to do. And when they look at it, they're like, oh, well, maybe I don't have 100 things to do, but it still feels like a lot. But then you have this list of maybe 20 things to do, or 20 things that are, require a decision. And then from there, it's like, okay, well, which of these, let's narrow it down to what are the 5 either most important and most urgent ones right now. And then it's like, okay, now we got to coach through the whole, okay, how do you take those 5 and how do you pick the next one thing that you can be working on? And this is the same process we use for our goal setting process. The same thing I help coach people through is just working on creating some prioritization, creating a system to be able to actually tackle these things. Don't tell yourself there's 100 things to do if there's not 100 things to do. Usually there's much less, and it's much more manageable than you think. And getting on paper can really relieve a lot of that anxiety and stress. Last thing in terms of some strategies of what to write about is, and this is going to sound a little woo woo. This is something I haven't done in a while, but I have seen some incredible things from it in the past when I've done it, is writing a letter to yourself from your older self. And hang with me here. I know it seems a little out there, but there's been times in my life where it's just, you feel incredibly lost. You're like, am I in the right direction? Am I doing the right things? Am I, like, I thought I would be further than this. I thought I'd be doing this. We, especially for people out there that are, trying to achieve more and trying to just be better, there's these frustrations that can happen. And we worry about things that are really not significant on the big scheme of things. And if you're in that situation, you're struggling with that, picture yourself, 20 years down the road, having accomplished everything that you wanted to have accomplished, having to, living as the person that you see yourself capable of living as. And what would your older self, your future best self, say to your current you right now? And I don't want to give too much guidance on this. I just want you to write with that if you're trying something like that. And it's a powerful exercise. So I recommend you trying it out, even if you're maybe not dealing with something super serious. But if you are, I recommend you consider giving that a shot, because it's something that, again, I haven't done in a while. As I was writing up some notes for the show, there's something that came to mind that I remember I used to do, though, and is a really cool exercise. So a couple other practical points that I want to leave you guys with before wrapping things up here today is write less than you think you can. I think the consistency of this is huge, and the more consistent you are, the better with something like this. But write less than you think you can. You might be motivated the first day out, you end up writing like 5 pages of stuff because you're like, man, I have so much I want to get out there. But that is not sustainable over time. Right? If you think you can write 5 pages, write a paragraph to start, and just get in the habit of writing a little bit. And when I say paragraph, it can be some of those other things too. Do, a shorter brain dump, do shorter bullet points, but do less than you think you can. And that'll help you sustain it more for the long term, because it's this long-term regular practice that really yields the most benefit. Now, hopefully your view on journaling has changed since listening to this, because it's going to be truly powerful for managing stressors, emotions, and gaining incredible clarity in your life. And Abraham Lincoln once said, one of my favorite quotes, "Give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, I'll spend the first 4 sharpening the axe." And like I talked about, I fully believe that taking action is key, but you have to make sure that it's purposeful action, laser focused, and pointing you in the right direction of where you actually want to go. And I think journaling is a great way to achieve this. If you find a better way to do it, great, all the power to you. But I think this is something extremely powerful and helpful that can be implemented. And it's that preparation time that makes your actual action time so much more effective. I would rather, like in that case, if you can do 2 hours of extremely purposeful, laser focused, driven action versus 6 hours of kind of aimlessly, like, I'm kind of crossing some things off my to-do list, but not sure if I'm going in the right direction, I guarantee you those 2 hours will be more impactful than those 6 hours when they're done with that extreme level of purpose and clarity. And just imagine being less stressed, less reactive to what life throws at you, and more confident and proactive in the direction you're heading and the steps for actually getting there. And all this is possible with some purposeful reflection. So I really want you guys to consider trying this, implementing this. And again, I hope to change your view a little bit on journaling, or maybe either inspired you to get back into it or to try it as a way to dealing with some of the stressors. Because I know, especially for the guys listening, it's not easy. We're already overworked. We're already overwhelmed. Where are we possibly going to find the time for that? But this has been really impactful for me, and I hope you guys can find the same thing for it. So thanks for listening in. If you need help with getting clear on these things, this is similar to the goal setting process. We use some of the steps that I use for journaling, and there's a link for that in the show notes there if you guys want to check it out. It's the 5 steps you need to achieve your big goals. It takes you through our specific goal setting process that I use with my coaching clients, and can help at least give you some clarity of what to focus on, what to make sure that you're taking that purposeful action. And if you did enjoy today's show, or if you're considered getting into journaling, I'd love to hear who's listening and what you guys are taking from it. So if you have any specific questions or other content suggestions, things you want to see more of, other other training, fitness, health, mindset things you want to see, send me an email at dave@iostrengthperformance.com. The email's there in the show notes to keep the conversation going. Thanks again for listening, guys. Hope you guys enjoy your weekend. If you're listening to this on the Friday, if not, enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll talk to you guys next week.